Call the meeting to order at 5 o'clock. First item, review and approve the minutes, the August 19th meeting. Was a change that you wanted made to your satisfaction?
Yes. I'll make a motion to approve and accept the minutes of August 19th. I didn't get a chance to read them.
Not last week, so that's not the one before.
September, the 16th?
Yeah, 19th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, I'll second that then. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
And you're still looking at the September 3rd ones?
Yes.
All right, then go into the abatements and the warrants. One abatement, is that with the man charge?
Yes.
Particular reason why, or just she requested?
She was gonna pay, she didn't get her bill in May, so she had like a demand
She have
charge.
to lay one, okay.
So she just asked, she paid it in full, she just wanted the demand charge removed.
Okay. Yeah, signed already. Let me know when you're ready on the minutes.
Yep.
Or the refund of overpayment.
Mm-hmm.
Brian pump, that for the Myox?
Yeah, it says Brian, yes.
Then we hopefully won't need very much longer.
Yeah. Well, I gotta carry through until we're running, so.
Yeah, oh, I'm aware.
I'm good.
You good?
Yep.
All right, minutes of the September 3rd meeting.
Make a motion. Second.
No comments? Okay, I didn't either, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Takes care of that. We'll give you a pile of stuff to sign, but let's go right to Mr. Hoyt from Tata and Howard for an update on all of our stuff.
Sure. So I'll start with the Manley plant. So in terms of the long term, we've gotten through a lot of the big shop drawings, so the metal building and the rebar for the foundation, kind of our focus. We did have some kind of comments back on the metal building, just, you know, it didn't match 100%, so we've had a couple of calls and I think got it all ironed out. So I think they're seeing a slight delay in their mobilization. I'm not sure entirely whether it's just like their own internal scheduling, but we don't have the concrete mix, even though we've approved now the rebar in the building. They haven't submitted the concrete mix, which they need to do before they can, you know, do any foundation work. So the fact that we don't have that is most likely why they're not on site preparing the foundation. So the latest as of this morning is they think they'll be on site by middle of October to kind of commence, which is about, you know, 4 weeks later than we thought based on the
Yeah, from
pre-con.
that pre-construction meeting.
But I don't think they'll let it slip too much longer because they have work they want to get done before the weather turns. They've been pretty clear on that. So, you know, we told them that we need an updated schedule since the other one's already out of date, right? So they agreed that they're working on getting us a new
Do
schedule.
they owe us like a monthly update on that anyway? At least.
Yeah, so they're supposed to give us, you know, frequent, like, look-aheads. You know, so each week or every other week, they should be giving us a, you know, 2, 3, or 4 week look-ahead, which is a lot more dialed in than the project-wide. So, you know, Wayne should know, you know, on a daily level what to expect at the plant. And we obviously need to know, you know, we're gonna have our RPR on site for anything happening below grade or any, you know, anything that needs inspection, but we don't wanna waste budget being on site when nothing's happening either. So, you know, it's important for us to know day by day what they're planning to do. And they're supposed to update that frequently, and then if their overall schedule shifts by more than a couple weeks, they're technically supposed to give us a whole new schedule for the project as well. So we're pretty much there because they're starting a month late, which is why we told them, you know, we need a new schedule, and they said absolutely, we're on it.
Are there winter conditions in the contract, in case it drags on beyond our delay, beyond their delay? Because of their delay?
It's, yeah, so there are, provisions in there for, the date they have to hit for substantial completion. There are always provisions in there for, damages. If their delays cost you money, then, they would have to reimburse them.
No, I'm just concerned about where they're starting them up later now, and we don't know if this weather's gonna be like this year, so.
We never know. It could be, we've had mild winters where they've worked
Yeah.
almost the whole winter, and we've had,
Right.
an October storm that screwed things up.
But
So,
if they get the concrete work done
Yeah.
in October, we should be in reasonable shape.
yeah, right, that's the main thing. We won't allow them to place concrete or do certain work if, the ground conditions don't allow it.
Like having a foundation freeze.
Yeah, does that happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
They pulled an actual building permit yet, do you know?
I believe they have, yeah.
Yeah.
So, because they actually pulled it, didn't realize that they would be offered a waiver on the fee. So they got the check returned back to them. So that's been done.
So you're making a little tick mark, so when we do change orders, that's gonna
Right.
be one of the credits we get. Because since they planned on paying.
That is true, right? I think, our spec, we typically leave it up to them to reach out and find out if the fee will be waived during their bidding. Unless, it's a town we know waives the fee every time. So if they didn't reach out and they submitted a check, then I guess theoretically their bid price includes that, right?
That's gonna be a significant fee.
For a couple $100.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be
$10
that
million
much.
bill.
Yeah, I forget what it was. It wasn't a lot.
Yeah, they're not gonna offer it up.
Yeah, I don't know, it was more of a joke. Anyway.
We can, I don't know if we'll start off the project fighting that
Credit.
battle.
Yeah,
So,
might not be worth it.
yeah, well, especially, since, it's early on, we wanna build good faith and.
Yeah.
But we'll certainly have it in our back pocket if it's, as one of those contractors who likes to nickel and dime, and we can nickel and dime back.
Yeah, hopefully we don't get to that.
Yeah, so, one thing we are gonna continue to monitor is the conversion over to Green Sand Plus and the, away from the MyOx. We had originally asked them to kind of expedite that because of the performance issues, which I think is a good segue to kind of go into there. That being said, I'm not thinking we should take our foot off the pedal, but we can kind of, go through that now.
Since we just spent, what, $3,000 on a pump for the MyOx system. It's like,
That's actually 2 pumps. I had to have a
That's
backup. Yeah. The price, it doesn't make any sense. The price escalated and then dropped.
don't question it if it's
I know,
wrong.
I wasn't, whether somebody made a mistake or something, I don't know.
Okay, so what I have here is just kind of a summary of the work we did over 2 days at the plant, working with Wayne and Brandon to kind of troubleshoot the performance. And so essentially it had 2 main components. One was like a system check, making sure that we understood, down to the valve opening close, how the system was actually operating versus how we understood it to be operating by reviewing plans, right? So, some of it was us making sure that what was happening in reality aligned with all of our assumptions for how the plant was operating. And I will say that Anthony, who's been around the block for a time or two, was really impressed with the knowledge and the ability to answer questions for Wayne and Brandon specifically. Sounds like you guys really have a good handle on what's going on. It's no surprise, but just thought I'd pass that feedback along. So the first thing that I alluded to was the kind of the system check. And we don't need to go through it. A lot of this is just kind of for visual purposes and to kind of show you our thought process and how we went through. And so the first thing we did was, reviewed the SCADA and the physical valves and mapped the flow of water throughout the system in every different mode, as well as the air through the system in every mode. And long story short, for the main production, when everything's operating going out, it's operating exactly how we all thought it was. The valves are operating correctly, and that's kind of the takeaway for this page here that I'm looking at. And it just indicates that, currently, based on operating, the backwash is done every 26-ish hours, and that's based on runtime, not the cost. And so the next one is just kind of a visual. We can see kind of our highlights. So if you're, having trouble sleeping some night and you want to do a little puzzle, you can kind of trace the lines here. But long story short, this kind of shows the flow of the various water streams through the plant. So one thing that, we kind of talked through with the operators was the bypass of the PFAS system. So in the last month, essentially from when we shut it down to do our our initial opening it up, actually it kind of goes back to the flooding, right? It was shut down to the flooding and it was kind of down for an extended period of time. Since bringing that back on, our understanding is that the operators have been manually bypassing the PFAS and not relying on the SCADA to bypass during certain phases and not during others. And I have a visual representation of that on the next slide. But that's going to be important as we go through to understand. And since then, the operators are now utilizing the air wash portion of the sequence, and our understanding is that it's not historically been done every single time it was a backwash, but since it's come back online, it is being done pretty frequently. And the reason that's applicable is if you look at the next picture, which I'm looking at this one here, this is what is programmed in. And so you'll notice for each of the different segments of the wash sequence, on the left we have our letters that this is all we drew on top of it, right? The red letters are us understanding, are we back, is it currently programmed to bypass PFAS for all of these different stages? And you can see for the first several, no, and then when it comes time to do the refill, the backwash, the bed settle, the rinse, all the obvious ones is bypassing the PFAS. And that was all okay, but the question really was around that air water wash. And so the question was, okay, let's walk through the flow and understand whether that is the correct setting. And so if we flip to the next page, it's a lot of doodling, but if we can just focus on the purple arrow, what this is showing us is that when we're doing the air wash step, we have air, but we also have water. And if the demand here is higher than what we're processing through these two, you can actually force backwards flow. And Brandon actually was sharp enough to pick up on a couple instances that he saw the flow meter for the PFAS vessel at least one time show a negative reading. And Anthony and Wayne and Brandon and Victor on site were able to reproduce that. So what it does show is there are instances where you're getting backwards flow through the PFAS vessel because the demand here to accomplish this step is greater than the flow coming, so you're actually pulling back from the system.
So it creates a vacuum, basically?
So, yeah, more or less, right? It's just, if the water coming into this...
It needs the water. So if it calls for 500 gallons a minute and the plant's only producing 3, it needs another 2, so the plant is designed to grab from the street.
Yeah.
But in order to grab from the street, now it has to go through the PFAS filter reverse.
Right. So what this means for us is it's an operational inefficiency. The filter is not designed to run in reverse.
Makes sense.
Right, so what this means is something, so the main takeaway here is that we encourage the water department to do what they are now, which is manually bypass for the whole cycle. Yeah. And when we're in here doing the next phase of upgrades, which is now, this fall, when we do the programming, we're gonna have them adjust that setting so that it automatically bypasses for that additional step. And that will prevent this little inefficiency where you have this upward flow. We will say we do not believe this is a contributing factor to the binding or the PFAS performance drop, but it is a potential explanation as to why that mess on top went away and got broken up. Like our two working theories are when we brought it back online, you get some bed lift, and that could have broken it up and then the forward flow dispersed it. But this is actually another really strong contender for how we broke up that. And you'll see pictures of the before and after got broken up later. So we do think this is something worth addressing. So in the short term, we recommend continuing to bypass, which the operators are already doing. In the long term, we should fix the SCADA programming so that when you're in full auto, you're not worried about it.
So now with that bypass, it still pulls back off the street, it just goes through piping and stays out of the vessel?
Yeah, exactly. So then the other piece, which is the part we were really interested in, was the water quality. And this is included, honestly, just because it looks cool. It doesn't tell a whole lot, but it does kind of show you, when you first start backwashing, what that backwash off the filter looks like. And as it progresses, you do see, the water quality improving. And then even more when you flip to the next page, by the time
If you look, this is settled out. Look at the bottom of the cup.
Yeah, I see that.
When it comes out, it's pure black coming through the flume.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but what we do see is by the end of the rinse cycle, that is not what is coming out, right? So that's a good sign.
Hopefully.
Right. Okay, so then the next page I'll draw your attention to is, it says visual of the vessel. And this is kind of what I was alluding to. I don't know if you guys have seen these two pictures side by side before, but as you recall, I was here last time with this picture. We're like, it doesn't look great. And then we were all quite surprised when we opened up the vessel a second time, and it looks like this, because this is what it's supposed to look like on this side. And you can still see some artifacts of that in these kind of blobs here. So when we took our sample of the media, we took a core through here, but we also captured a few of these blobs and sent those off to the lab. As of the end of last week, we hadn't gotten any results back, but what we're expecting is that when they analyze this, it'll confirm the makeup of what this layer was, and we have some guesses of what it is based on water quality that we'll get into next. But essentially, when I'm talking about the media beds, this is what I'm talking about. The surface has now been completely broken up. And again, the mechanism for that could just be when we refilled it and lift the bed, you're opening up the pores between each of the granules of media, and also potentially floating this up off the media with water before, and then it breaks up and kind of resettles, and when you start pushing it back through, that broken up material gets pushed back through the filter, and it's most likely evenly dispersed throughout, or broken up in the top bit of the layer. And so this next slide, the updated pressure drop. So this is a visual representation of what's happening with the pressure. And there is really only one big takeaway that we're trying to point out, and that's on the beginning. We have where we were kind of at originally, and you can see in blue is our flow, and the red is our pressure differential. So we're looking at how much the pressure is dropping through the media, and on the far side, you'll see kind of this break here is where we were shut down due to the flooding. This is when we did our inspection, right, and saw that media. And then once we've done our second inspection where that layer wasn't on top anymore, really what we're trying to show is that even when the flow came back up, your pressure drop through the vessel went down. So what this is telling us is that that layer on the top was impacting the hydraulics of that vessel. So once again, it points to, we visually saw something was wrong, we saw performance was dropped. Well, now we're seeing hydraulic results that we can correlate pretty strongly to that stuff being on top. And if we're having, a hydraulic performance drop, we can't say with 100% certainty, but it certainly points that the system not performing from a water quality standpoint makes sense. So, this is one data point that points towards that layer causing the performance issues with our PFAS treatment.
If there were pressure gauges on that, would it tell us that there'd be problems?
So we would have had
When you
the
talk about
recording from the date. The pressure gauges came because they wanted to see it and we installed them.
Yeah, but they're not tied into SCADA or
So
anything.
those aren't recording, they're just.
No, they're not, they're just static gauges.
Okay, so, but before the gel, we did get a drop from before to after about what, but the flows afterwards were a little, just over half the flow before.
Exactly, right.
So is that drop in pressure where you'd expect it at the lower flow level, or?
So I guess we haven't looked at like the performance curve of the media to say whether this pressure drop matched perfectly with this flow drop, if that's your question. But what we did do is say this to this isn't apples to apples, but this to this is closer to apples. So
But
we
it's
really,
just- there's not much of it, there is a drop, but it's
not substantial.
it's not a substantial
Yeah.
drop.
Yeah. It's hard to know, if we had data up here, we'd be better able to correlate. But I can't honestly with any confidence say what this is telling us. We could send it to the manufacturer and have them compare it to their performance curves of what they would expect in head loss over time. But we haven't done that at this point. And then the next two, I think, tell a pretty compelling story as well. So what I'm looking at now is a September 5th site measurements page. And really what we're trying to show is the water quality coming in, what it looks like coming out of the green sand, but before we treat it for PFAS, and then what it's doing, what it looks like after it comes out of PFAS. And so what you'll see here is, this is at the 0.26. So essentially we're saying, 15 minutes after we backwash, this is what our water quality looks like. So you can see we are using a decent amount of chlorine, but it's not zero coming out, right? So that means there's, we're not neglecting oxidation power through the green sand.
This is also not chlorine, it's Myox.
That's true.
I mean, it's a makeup of it, but it's not true sodium hypochlorite.
That is true. So it is, so when we measure it, we're still measuring it as chlorine, but it is
Right.
technically a little different. Yeah. But you can see during this period, we were coming in with, pretty good iron and manganese levels, right? So
Yeah.
it's not like we were sampling this on a day when things were low. Like that's significant loading of iron and manganese. And we had great performance coming off the green sand. And then again, they're more or less the same coming out of PFAS, which would be expected, right? There's no mechanism there, directly targeting. But again, seeing how low the manganese is coming off, the PFAS, in matching what's coming into the PFAS, we do think this supports what Wayne has been saying, that the overdosing of permanganate is not a likely mechanism here, which was one of the early theories that the manufacturer had thrown out there. Wayne kind of right off the bat said he didn't think that was it. And I think this kind of supports what Wayne has been saying. Where things get a little bit more interesting is on the next slide, and this is doing that same water quality workup right before the backwash starts at 26. And now we've seen some performance drop off. So, now our iron is 0.61, so we're still getting removal, but that's still higher than what we want coming off the green sand process. And you'll see we actually have less iron coming off after it goes through PFAS. So that means there's iron that is going into the PFAS and not coming out.
Which is bad.
Which is bad, right? And so then if the next little slide is just, an equation to kind of look at you know, based on that, again,
So if that sludge that was at the top is primarily iron and manganese, so it would be that it's coming out. Would that be the indication that that's probably what's in there?
yeah, so, yeah, exactly. So if you look at the equation on the next page, it says, you know, over the period from when we started up to when we opened up the vessel and saw this, you know, we calculated it could have been about 116 pounds of iron that went in and didn't come out. And if you do out the math, like that aligns pretty well with what we saw here on the top.
Yeah.
So again, we can't say definitively, but all of the signs are pointing in the same direction at this point, whether it's, you know, the operational parameters, that the system's being run correctly, looking at the water quality deteriorating by the time you get to 26 hours. And then I think the final piece will be when we get the lab results back. If this is high in iron and manganese, then this is going to support that. You know, what's happening is for most of your cycle, you're doing well, but at the very end, right before backwash, the water quality is not where we want it to be, and you're getting a little bit, and then you're backwashing, and then what's loading into the PFAS is okay, you get to the end of backwash, and so we've just been adding a little bit of iron at a time, you know, every 26 hours, and what you have here is an accumulation of 5 months of that.
So what happens if it's backwash to 25 hours instead of 26 hours? Would
So
that also work?
that's kind of where we're at.
24 hours.
So if we go to the summary page, our main takeaways. No, you're asking the exact right question. That's where we're heading. Just kind of summarize where we are before I go into where we're going. The chlorine looks in line with what our strategies have been. The valves are doing what they're supposed to be doing. We talked extensively about the bypass, but just in summary, I think the operators are right to do that full manual bypass for now, and we'll make sure that when we come in and do the SCADA upgrades as part of the next project, we adjust that one stage to also be automatically in bypass, and then they won't have to do that manual bypassing every time. I know right now because of the flooding, they want to be there during backwash anyway, but we're doing this project, we don't want that stressor to be there when it's an easy fix. And then we've identified, 2 potential causes of performance. The water quality, it looks like there's iron carryover. The air water wash, we're getting some backwards flow. And so it all kind of comes down to where do we go next. And so I think there's a short-term answer and there's a long-term answer. And I think the short-term is if we could try to find a way to optimize the operation. There's 2 ways to do it. You can do just trial and error and just adjust the backwash, and then the operators can check. Or we could do another round where, before backwash, and it can be Wayne, it can be us, but somebody takes a sample every, at 26 hours, at 24 hours, at 20 hours, 20 hours, 18.
How did that number come up with in the first place, 26 hours?
I think it was part of the design, the original design.
Normal
That's what they
runtime.
thought though.
Yeah, so we'll have recommended run times, for, SEER Norman, so it's the same thing. It's looking at your influent loading, your loading rates coming through, and then that essentially tells you what your maximum runtime is, and then usually with a factor of safety, you set it. So I'm sure the plant was always assumed to can handle 24 to 26 hours on the safe side, but that would have been based on the water quality the day the plant
Does
was
that mean
on.
that we're getting more iron out of the water now than we were 20 years ago when we built
No,
that?
there's more iron and manganese in the water. So when
That's
the
what I
plant was
mean, yeah.
designed, by the time I was hired, it wasn't performing anymore. And I know by what was going on, and over time I fixed it. Brendan read something in the literature too, where the backwash, when you approach backwash and you get there, if the filters are loaded, then it'll push iron through. So right now the plant is actually offline because we didn't have time to backwash it today. It's not a good time for us to have it offline, but we're busy and your people they're grabbing a lot of water lately. Like we went over 1 million gallons a day going through the
We
weekend.
haven't had rain in a long time.
And it's been hot.
Yeah.
So they're calling, so I'll speak with Randy before they go out tonight, see if they can grab another guy out of DPW. But, you know, it's trained operators out there, like, if you close a hydrant wrong,
Yep.
you're spending the next 12 hours out there.
And you didn't take any intermediate samples between the 15 minutes after?
Yeah, so we had, yeah, exactly. So we had the 2 days on site, and they were 2 long days with a lot of sampling and,
The last day, he spent a lot, like Brendan was late coming back.
yeah.
So he likes to talk and he's read, and we'll have him do more sampling as it gets closer and sample and try to find.
Yeah,
Obviously, it should be stepped back from not 26, it's set at 24, maybe go to 22 and see what's happening there.
right.
Yeah, because if all of a sudden, it might be it's staying low and all of a sudden it starts to spike, we hit it right before it starts to spike.
Yeah,
Right. And it's happening at some point, right? Because we know after backwash it's working, and we know right before backwash, we're starting to see the drop off. But, you know, for all we know, it looks pristine all the way up to 20 hours or 22
And if
hours.
it wasn't for going through the PFAS and clogging that unit,
We never would have
you
known.
never would have known, because it's just gonna mix in with the water as it's going out.
Right, and it's coming out in compliance.
Yeah.
Right, like, and that's the message to the public is, the
It's
water
coming
coming
out
out
compliance.
of that plant right now is in compliance. So, you know, we're putting this in context of the troubleshooting, and the performance, but at the end of the day, it's because we're being, you know, proactive.
Yep.
Make sure we're not cutting our lifespan short.
Well, if we can shut it down for, you know, maybe it's a couple hours off the backwash, but then we don't have to deal with it clogging, then we never, you know, we don't have to deal with shutting it down, going, trying to figure out, cleaning it out, and dealing with it again. We can just, operation, we keep it running.
Yeah. So I guess ideally, what we would like is to see, you know, so another, I guess, data point pointing to the fact that this was the cause is that in the latest round, you know, the PFAS was back down, right? So that's the number one indicator, and really the most important indicator was that since that gel layer, that's not the official term, that's just what we're calling it, right? Well, since that was broken up and dispersed and the media returned to looking as it should, you know, the performance has come back up to where it should be, and the PFAS was back down to nothing. So
Schmutt dick.
How come,
Schmutt dick is the,
that's the official term?
how
So
come
the
you don't
schmutt-
see that gel layer on the green sand, if that's taking out so much more, iron and manganese?
well, you'd have to shut down the plant and drain down one of those filters to look in and see what's in there prior to a backwash.
But does it backwash more than the PFAS filter? Do those-
Yeah, the PFAS
PFAS doesn't
They're
go
not
backwash.
backwashing PFAS, they're only backwashing the regular filter.
So I think what you're seeing in that picture with all the cups is, you know, all that stuff that would be on top after 24 hours is being flushed out that line.
What
So
he did
those-
say was it was backwashing, but
Inadvertent.
not by
So
design.
it wasn't supposed to be.
It wasn't supposed to.
And it hasn't been lately because they've been manually preventing it from doing so.
But that also means that we're gathering up more of that stuff on top again then.
True, yeah.
And when it's accidentally backwashing, that's not getting any air, that's just water,
Yeah.
because it's just pulling back off the finished water, so it's not.
Yeah. And again, we're not super concerned from a water quality standpoint because it's cleaning, it's pulling back treated water. So again, that's why we don't think that's the mechanism for what caused the contamination, if you will. But it's certainly something we picked up in doing this analysis that, you know, we would recommend fixing anyway. And it's another thing that kind of is moot once we have the full upgrade going, right? You know, we're gonna be pulling out all this media, you're gonna be putting in new green sand plus media, you're gonna be using, you know, better oxidants, you're gonna be eliminating permanganate. So, you know, you probably, will know, right? We did a pilot of this, and you'll be back up to being able to run 24 hours once the media, the green sand plus media is swapped over. So it really is just a short-term measure. If we can try to not gunk up the PFAS, that way we can get, you know, several more months of good PFAS performance now, then that gives us the confidence we need to install the PFAS media at the new plant. You know, but if we, you know, so if we address this and we are confident that we're no longer, you know, gunking it up, and then, you know, we track the PFAS, it gives us a level of comfort that, yes, we've identified the issue, we've corrected the issue, and we've seen the performance stay where it should for several more months, It allows us to tell DEP it's working. It gives you the confidence that you're not paying, buying new media for your new plant that isn't gonna last, So, even though it's not a compliance issue, we do think it is worth, unfortunately, more work for Wayne and his team to try to optimize the timing of the backwash a little bit, just so that we can extend the life and, keep us.
How long does it take to backwash?
So it probably takes, almost 2 hours when you're doing the air water.
So I know that's a lot,
Yep.
but I don't know if there are any other questions on that.
No, I mean, it sounds like what we're finding out sounds kind of the better of the two.
Yeah.
Because if the other option was the media was being used up,
Yeah.
we'd have an issue going forward with what we're looking at doing. So if it's an operational thing, and we get the new media in, which should be working a lot better anyway, we shouldn't end up seeing problems like this in the other units.
Agreed.
When it all goes in.
Yeah.
So, no, I mean, it's, in a way, it's like, almost good that it happened when it did, that way we find out ahead of time, we'll have it. And if
Then you
we-
should have 2 brand new vessels full of it and dump them all.
Yeah,
Right, yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, we agree it's, overall good news. It's too bad we had to, spend our summer
Oh.
figuring it out, but it's worth it.
better now than full scale when
Yeah.
everything's in.
It's basically like you design it, the plant, and you give us the recipe, but then, every now and then, you add some sugar, you take some sugar out, or you put a little, but it needs constant care.
Right.
And you're comfortable with what you've been hearing and seeing from what.
Yeah, that make, looking at the calculations and the amount of iron, yeah, and we're probably, since he just started, we're about to sample again, so this week we'll pull our samples again, we'll hear in a couple of weeks.
Okay, and then, so if I'm gonna get to pivot to Sear Norman? Are we good?
Sure.
Okay,
You
So-
We're all set?
I'm all set. I'm good.
Go ahead.
yeah, so for Sear Norman, we're, plugging away. We have our next set, I think we're calling it 50%, is currently in my review, and then it'll be going to our, tech review, early next week, and so you should have the 50% set early October. One thing I do want to mention that changed since 30% and get your initial reaction, is that we have rotated the building 90 degrees. So you can kind of get a sense for it, Wayne, if you walk out there and see where our stakes were. I don't know if they put them back or if they threw them on the ground after they pulled them into their borings, but essentially you'll have a diagonal line of 3. It's essentially a building corner, a middle, and then the opposite corner to get a sense of it. And the way the plateau is up there,
They might be in.
So it's for piping reasons.
so no, it's for excavation purposes. So the way the plateau is up there, it drops off on the left down towards the wells,
Yeah.
and then it kind of drops off down towards here, but it's a lot flatter going out. And so we originally laid it out in the way that didn't have us taking out any trees, but we ended up with like a 200-foot long retaining wall. And so we're like, that's an awful
Because
expensive.
of where the slopes are.
Yeah, that seems like an expensive solution, so, what happens if we rotate? So yeah, we have to take a couple more trees, but overall, it's gonna save some cut and fill, and it's gonna save us retaining wall. One artifact of that is that your aeration tower will be on the front of the building. Again, no one comes back in there, so in terms of an eyesore, we don't think that's an issue, but it is a change from what we showed you. But it does also make it more accessible for maintenance, so.
Sound level, like it's an air tower. I haven't seen one, so what noise comes off of that?
Yeah, I
Is
asked.
it blowing into it, or is it just dropping like the cooling tower?
I'm not sure the noise level.
I mean, it has blowers, doesn't it? I thought I remember.
Maybe
Yeah,
I'll get
it has blowers up. 'cause you
Maybe
have
I'll get
blowers.
over to East Bridgewater and see.
I
Okay.
mean, but as far as like noise around the area, it's not gonna make much difference from one end of the building to the other.
No, I know that when you flip it, I know, obviously it won't make that much, but now it's in the front.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the building would have buffered the sound a little, admittedly. It'd just be, we could mirror the whole building.
No, that's fine,
That would increase our piping length.
it's fine.
But that's why I wanted to mention it, right, because it's a change from what we want, and we want your feedback. So those are the things that, you can look at when we give you 50%, ask those questions. I know I've offered before to reach out to somebody, so I'll continue to make that a priority. Because we've done those aerators all over the place, so I asked for some feedback from others who put them in. If their clients were happy or not. Because I know you've had some experience where people had issues, so.
Well, they just didn't maintain them.
Blowers outside or inside?
No, the blowers would be inside, I think on the mezzanine level. Is that where we currently have them? So the other piece is that, we do still need to put an SRF package in mid-October. So we're working on the application. As we mentioned previously, we've notified DEP that, we'll be setting the drawings separately by the end of November, as opposed to putting in drawings that were too preliminary, because then they require you to cloud all the changes, and that would have
That's a lot.
been a bad look, right? So, we talked to them about that, we discussed, so we're still kind of heading towards that direction. We still need to have it done and bid, at the end of winter. We want to be bidding at the right time of year to get interest and get competitive bids. And then we need to be awarded by June. So even though we're pushing those drawings back a month, it's really not changing the overall schedule, which is, we have to be awarded by June. So that's what we're pushing towards.
And they're okay with the plans being a little bit late?
Yeah, we talked to Patricia Arp, who's working with us on this particular project. And she was kind of funny about it, just being like, yeah, nobody meets these deadlines anyway. I said, okay, well, you try.
After you kill yourselves all the time,
I know,
trying to
right?
meet all the deadlines.
Yeah, right. We met them all in the last project, so maybe others aren't, but West Bridgewater is.
Know what matters most.
And then the only other item I had was the lead. I know Molly has been kind of in coordination. It sounds like, we've done everything that we were originally going to. Separately, Wayne and his team have gotten some new data. And it's just a matter of whether you want us to send you what we have to compile, or if you want to send us what you have to compile.
We'll be sending you ours. Ours is,
Okay.
Deborah looked over what she received, and ours is a lot more complete. These past 3 weeks, we've been doing nothing but every 30 minutes, we're in somebody's house.
Okay.
There's people responded. It looks like by the end of this week, it's dropping off. I didn't see any reaching out further. And rather than tickle anybody again with another postcard, we'll just end. You gotta end because we have to submit.
Right.
There'll be a 10-year plan, without a doubt, coming out of it. And then we'll just go after it again after that.
Okay.
But we have enough.
All you have to do is submit to be in compliance. And all of our sheets align with what they've required. They have specifications. So we align with that, so when they do with their certifications, they can do it. But out of it, without a doubt, we're gonna get hit with a 10-year plan. Not that we have any lead service lines or any known lead goosenecks, it's the fact that we're gonna have unknowns, or we'll have steel lines in there.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where a lot of communities are. It's like where you have unknowns, you almost have to treat them as if they are lead, right? So, the ideal thing is to get rid of as many unknowns as you can, because then you don't have to send letters to people telling them they might have lead. And then ultimately, we all know where this is going, is that, DEP is going to eventually mandate there be no unknowns, and then they're eventually going to mandate that all the lead are, removed. Like that.
Yes, they've already said that if somebody has a line that has to be changed and they won't do it, then you're gonna be forced to do it for them. How you recoup your costs is another matter.
I was just gonna say, and bill them for it?
Yes, they don't say anything, they just say that you will have to
Yeah,
replace
it'll
it.
be our responsibility.
Yes,
That is a challenge that communities are facing is once you know that there is lead, you know, if it's on the private side only, you know, where does the responsibility lie? They own that pipe.
Yeah. And you
Town
can't
does
go-
not.
right.
And you can't go on their property to replace it. So if they force us to replace it,
Right.
nice.
So, questions about anything else?
No, just, so Deborah will just send that,
Yeah,
it's ready to
we'll
send.
just pick a line in the sand when you guys say that that's it, then she'll,
Yeah, so we've been saying the end of September, just so that, you
all
know,
right.
to be fair.
'Cause I know it's October
25
16th
of
is the
these, right, for various communities.
Well, no, that's why.
So we do need a drop, you know, pencils
Yeah.
down date, just, you know, you can't have.
If we're not collecting that much more data, then it won't make a difference, she can transmit.
Yeah, and if a couple trickle in, you put them on our list and we get them in
Right.
if we can, and if we can't, then, you know.
We'll just continue, it'll be a continuous update until you have no unknowns and, which will be 10 years out.
All right, so if we did it end of the week, is what we have,
Yeah, I think we're just asking, you know, end of September, pencils down, so we have time to put a button on.
Unless somebody calls in, but it doesn't, but when I looked forward a week, there were only a few, not the same runaround.
okay.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take it earlier, we'll take the more time if we can get it, but don't stress about it either.
A few aren't gonna make a difference.
All right, so, anybody have anything else for James?
Well, thank you as always.
Thank you for coming and for all that information and
Yeah, I mean, it's fun.
mostly good information.
Yeah, it's fun stuff too, right? It's like, I don't know, it's fun engineering,
It's like, hey, it is the right amount of iron.
right? Yeah, it's like you have all the theory, you know, how things, you have your, you know, ideas of what is happening, but then when you can actually do the investigation and, you know, find all the evidence and it all points to the culprit, it's cool stuff. All right, well, have a good night.
All right, thank you.
Is that what we pay for weekly cleaning?
What?
Is that what we pay for weekly cleaning?
No, it's not weekly, is it? Bi-weekly.
Twice a month.
So it's $384 a month we pay for.
All right, let's see.
And this is just for this building?
Yeah.
Okay, on to old business. ZBA decision, nothing to report. We've covered the stations, unless you have anything that James didn't cover for Manley Street or for
No, everything,
the other stations.
still going good, was it last time? The drives, I have 2 VFDs that are, the electrician is coming back Wednesday.
Okay.
And then I'll get to physically be with him and ask him why they suddenly changed. Because he's talking about rewiring them, and I'm like, well, they've been running the way they were wired perfectly fine. What the heck changed that
Yeah.
would force you to rewire them?
And why would we think the rewiring is gonna fix it?
Change whatever occurred.
Okay. So that'll be this week. Anything on Walnut Street tank? I
haven't-
suspect you haven't had a chance
I
of all that's been
haven't,
going on.
I will get up there. I have to burn my time before the end of October.
Yeah. No, and as long as it's not getting any worse, it's not like it's an emergency
It hasn't
thing.
gotten any worse, but I'd like to get up there and cinch the bolts and see that that was it.
Yeah. All right. Dylan, Communications Committee, anything to report?
The vendor design website submitted a new layout based off of the edits, and it looks pretty good, so I think they're gonna move forward with that, then they'll start integrating all the data from our website into the new website. So, it's moving along.
Any schedule on it, or just eventually, when it's ready, we'll know.
And it was like an 18-month project.
All right. Okay, the Turnpike Street water bills?
So I know you sent out, you asked, was it Stiles?
Yes. And because it's already, I can only have one location, because they have their location, you can't put it in our system, because it won't read, it's already reading somewhere else. So
But-
they tell me.
There was something, they could either allow us a portal, or we could go out and do something, grab all the numbers and program. I know I'm asking you to pick on the gray matter here.
Oh, hold on 1 second, I'll tell you exactly what he said.
Give me that one, I didn't sign it.
It's a WB. It's a big one. Data Howard.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Well, we should have had this one while we were still here, we had a hard time.
It said the endpoints cannot be linked to more than one Beacon portfolio, but there is a customer portal you can use to access the data. If you provide me information about the services, address, serial numbers, or account ID, I can help you access them and show you how to use the portal. The other option is for Easton to set you up as a limited user on their portfolio. They can assign specific meters to you, and the rest of their system is blocked for viewing.
All right, so then it requires either going off on our own or prodding Easton again, who hasn't been user-friendly.
Well, I thought, when we talked the last time, if it was a way to do it without involving Easton, we were gonna try that first.
Right.
That would be the portal, correct? If I'm
The
understanding.
customer portal.
Yeah, but we need like serial numbers for all.
Yeah, we'd have to get into the houses. So, but my question would be to ask them back, is it something that we can add in as we go along? I mean, we can mail, we know the addresses, so we can mail them and ask for
The
permission.
information, or
What?
permission.
Yeah, permission to go in and grab the transmitter numbers.
How many houses is it?
I wanna say it's less than 30 or less.
It's like 27, I think.
Are some of them commercial?
Yeah, a couple of them are commercial. Yeah, there's probably like 5 to 10 that are commercial.
All right, so you're gonna just go ahead with, you'll contact them back about sending the letters and
Right,
making sure we can get that done?
yeah,
To make like, I mean, doesn't really matter what until the next meter reading.
right.
Right.
But we're ticking along towards it.
Yeah. And if it seems like that's not, because then that doesn't affect Easton at all.
No,
We have that information, we can get the information to send the bill. It doesn't affect anything, that they still get their information off that,
yeah,
as far as for their total usage.
Right.
and
I'll work on a letter this week.
everything. Okay.
but first prod him and see if we can do it, add in as we go, or we need everything at once.
I need everything at once. I would rather just give him everything
All right.
at once and piece it.
All right, then we just need to formulate a letter and then
Yeah.
target them hard.
All right. Job posting.
There was one
Yes.
that came in. I mean, he has a treatment 3 license, whether he was active in it, I don't know. Obviously, he was smart enough to pass, because to get to a T3 is it's not an easy task.
Oh, he was working, he didn't say where. he was
No, he
working.
just said he was working for Viola, which
But not what.
he could have been just sitting in a plant, or he could have been running
Yeah.
around. But it's worth talking to him and see.
Yeah.
That's the only one we've had in so far?
That's the only one so far.
To Brockton High School, 06, so.
I graduated in 05.
Oh, so he's a kid.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Nope, ask him to come in and,
All right.
don't see any reason not to.
No,
And he had said,
he's available immediately.
but apparently doesn't like what he's doing right now.
No, well, he walked away from it, so it looks like he walked away this year.
Yeah.
So either he didn't like where he was, or,
He had a couple of the end for the references, one of those names sounds familiar.
Yeah, I don't know.
But like it would have, like a Veolia name that I've heard
Yeah.
before. So,
I mean, he said that you could call them, so
Yeah.
he must have went on a good
That's
term.
even better. I don't think you can do that anymore, calling them out for references.
well, it probably helps the fact that he's already left the company.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because usually if you're still working there, then they don't want people really
Right.
looking around.
Right.
So, no, that's,
Okay,
and does
bring them in.
anybody related to him work?
I don't know anybody,
Already?
that I know, I haven't asked the guys.
Yeah.
They haven't seen it, so they wouldn't know.
Okay. And he's from Bridgewater, so that's.
Right.
That's.
Yeah, that's actually good. So if we don't have an issue with the response time or anything like that. All right, if we can set it up and let us know, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
Next meeting,
Next meeting would
October
be
7th.
10/7. That's Monday for you?
Mm-hmm,
Isn't there a weird holiday in there somewhere
that's the
though?
week after.
All right.
So it won't affect either of our meetings?
No,
No.
that's the next one.
Okay. Something.
So I gave you so we've been okay, we've gotten a 0% loan. That's the
That's, I was
amortization.
just gonna ask what this was.
That's the amortization chart that they're predicting at this point. That means that next year I will have to, this coming fiscal budget year, I'll have to budget for it. So, by fiscal year 2026,
Yeah.
we'll have to budget for a payment.
So then, there's nothing in under loan forgiveness, is that gonna maybe change?
So, I'm trying, so we have the ARPA money, which was 1.3, so we're spending that towards it.
Yep.
How much will go towards this project versus the other? They haven't gotten back to me, I should have asked James, because he has to fill out the forms and send them back. They kept changing the forms to make sure that you didn't get any free money anywhere. I mean, none of it's free, but they kept changing the forms.
Is there any grant money available for this stuff?
Well, we do have a $3.1 million grant.
But I mean, there's a grant writer at the town hall, do they get involved? Got it.
No, but for this one, for that loan,
No.
they do say loan forgiveness with nothing there, but it does say at the bottom it qualifies for loan.
Right, so they had,
They given us a Schedule B.
I think I remember 3%, hearing 3% out of the SRF. The SRF is more set, when I spoke with the woman, set more for PFAS and emerging contaminants like manganese.
Yeah,
So PFAS applies to, but we're not a disadvantaged community because we don't have low income, so we're not disadvantaged, so that's what drives it down to the 3%.
but we should be getting,
We should be getting something, they haven't mentioned that yet.
so this debt's,
It
we're
amounted
going,
to about $120,000 if I calculated the 3% correctly, off of 4 million. So it'll be a little less, so it's not a
it'll
huge.
drop the payments some, but not a ton.
Right, it's not gonna drop it a lot, and it could already be taken out for all I know, they just didn't mention it anywhere. Because I think that's where they push over to the other one, the EC-SDC. There's multiple grants which you apply, but they all finger back together.
Okay. But at any rate, we're not gonna get 50% forgiveness or something like that.
No, no.
Have you run this by Scott yet?
No, but he receives the same thing, because they have to sign all of those forms.
Okay. So
I did put my signature, because they were prodding me, because I was trying to be out last week, or barely awake, and they were prodding me to sign my document. So I did do it this morning, first thing.
All right. Kills everything on the
Well, that's
agenda.
20 years, we'll still be paying for the Walnut Street tank when that's paid off.
In 2045?
Yeah, because the Walnut Street tank, I believe, was a 40-year note.
Yeah, that was one of the rural development
Yeah,
grants.
So it has
Which
a
does
higher
go up
interest, that's
real
why the
low.
principal payment and the interest payment are basically the same. And they're up high. It would take the town rebonding to pay it out and get away from it.
So we only have another 21 years.
Yeah, we'll be dead.
I don't know about that, we'll be around. We'll still be here.
Well, before we drop off, I want to thank you and the guys for all this extra time you had to put in because of the contractor over there at 106.
We
That's,
didn't, yeah, we
you know-
prepped, we went out, we turned all of those
Yep.
gates, we repaired gates because there was some with rounded nuts. We were ready, but it just, you can't be turning them that much, and you're out there at midnight trying to get a wrench down through the muck straight, and it's not an easy thing.
and when they're digging right through a cast iron main, and,
Yeah.
you know, that's on the contractor.
Right.
You should not have had to be out there dealing with that,
No.
so.
You said that they paved over our gates?
So that was the state paved over our gates, you know, when they ground that,
Yeah,
well, the gates were showing, and then they went and paved them.
so they're gone.
So we dug one back up, we haven't found the other, so we have to, but it's hard to stand out there because you're on the on-ramp and they don't slow down, they speed up.
Yeah,
Well, and even you find them, a lot of times that's still gonna be full, so
If
now
you-
it's hard, you can
Right.
find it, now you gotta still try to dig it out
Right.
to be able to get on the nut on the valve.
yeah.
And then the one in front of Bloom's, basically the top, the seal let go, which was weird. It's a newer gate, so we have it backseated, you won't see it leaking, but there's a way you backseat it and jam the seal up hard, and it keeps it from leaking, but the thing's pouring out when it's not backseated.
So that'll be.
Hopefully we
repaired.
just dig down and pull the top off.
Yeah. But that, and where that is gonna be a pain.
Oh yeah, but we'll do it during the day, it's not. The worst one will be the nut, which is in the middle of West Center and West.
All right, well, again, thanks, but that's actually one of those things where everything starts to go to hell, there's no choice, everybody's on.
Yeah.
All gonna be out there, and then you're still gonna come in and do the work the next day.
Right.
Because, you know, again, it's.
No, the police got on board, they were like, the town literally gridlocked,
Yeah,
even the chief was out there, it's like, it was bad. So my concentration was not to inform people, by the time I would have informed anybody, we were already coming back up. It was to get them out of the street.
well, the communications thing is updated, maybe it'll be easy to send something out
It
there.
would be better if they had like a flashing banner at the bottom, like, look at the water department, well, click here to go to water department current.
On the existing website?
Or on the existing, or even make sure on the
They
new
do
one.
have
some-
that, but it's like, you're limited to like 150 characters, something like
Right.
that.
We just need to be able to point, like, someplace that you tell people, all right, this is where you've gotta go to look. Like, at 12:30 in the morning, like I said, I wasn't waking everybody up. I only got woken up because, well, I'm the contact.
Now, give me a
But
text
then-
next time.
Something started getting eaten in my backyard, like, everything dies in my backyard. I'm like, all right, I'm not sleeping anyway, so off I went.
But as far as my everything's, are they out of that area enough now?
No, I could hear this morning, like, they didn't move. I went up there and the pavement disturbance hasn't moved. I know they were out there last night. I don't know what they were doing because I could hear somebody complaining about the noise. But they weren't in the road. So I don't know what they're doing at this point.
Okay. But you've had a little bit of time with no breaks to respond to.
Right. Like I said, it's the worst time of year because we're flushing, so to be out there another 6 hours beyond and then come in the next day is not what you're looking for. And then to do it 2 days in a row that just wasn't good.
You've communicated your displeasure to the contractor.
Yeah, I don't think they really care. Yeah, I let the contractor know that if this keeps up, I'm gonna have to shut you down. Like, you can't go on like that.
All right, Dylan, anything else for tonight?
No, that's it.
Good. John?
I'm good, good job again, keep up. Well, soon to be over this and moving on.
Yeah,
Yeah, hopefully that will quiet down, and we'll be in decent shape going forward. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're done.